Welcome back to the Heroes of Global Championship. It's Happy Friday, and we got a lot of cool stuff to show off today. My name is Trixler, and the handsome gentleman over there to the left looking dapper today, it's Caldor.
How you doing, man? You
Doing
good?
pretty well, man. You good?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah? I'm hyped. Got my coffee, everything's set, and we have good games coming up, so yeah, I'm happy.
Yep, a great weekend of European content coming your way per usual. Today we're starting off with a good one, beGenius and Fnatic facing off, and hopefully beGenius can get their first win because they are really looking for something here.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things where Quagnix, we talked to him a little bit, and he said he's always worried about these games because you're supposed to win, you're going up against an opponent that is on paper at least weaker than you are, but first of all, you don't want to be the first opponent to lose to them, and second of all, that's a valuable points right there. So Fnatic definitely is going to bring everything out today.
They got to bring it all out. Let's look at the standings right now, just to give you an idea of where beGenius is currently standing. They are in the very bottom. They have yet to earn a victory in the HGC. They are 0-8. This weekend, they'll have 2 opportunities to maybe get a victory. The first one will be against Fnatic, the number 2 seed at 7-1 there at the very top. Still behind Team Liquid with a 9-0 undefeated team alongside L5 over in Korea, just rocking in terms of standings.
Yeah, I have to say that right now, when you look at the standings, it's actually incredibly interesting. Team Liquid all the way up at the top with the 9-0.
Yeah.
It was very close last weekend, on the other hand, when the Playing Ducks were facing off against them. A lot of people argue that should have been a 3-0 victory for the Ducks, but then in the end, Team Liquid turning it around, making a very good stand here, and still undefeated in the league.
It's incredible. We talk about it week after week, the depth that we have in Europe. The Playing Ducks, Tricked Esports, they're playing today as well against Synergy. Just so many teams that really we could see them doing slightly better. In fact, let's talk about the schedule. What will you be seeing today in both Europe and North America? Later on, Synergy and Tricked Esports going at it, 2-6, 2-6. Oddly enough, that matchup is a crucible matchup. Whoever loses that potentially will be in the bottom 2 no matter what. North America, Superstars and Gale Force Esports, and of course ending out the day with Team Freedom and B-Step. But starting your Friday, beGenius and Fnatic, and Caldor, you are pumped for this.
Yeah, I definitely am. I want to see what beGenius can do this time. I mean, they are also like one of the teams that is pretty much with their back to the wall. So of course, on the one hand, it's very annoying to them that they already more or less are guaranteed to drop down into the Crucible. Like, it's very rough for them to have any chance of making them out there. But the problem is, they cannot do whatever they want. If they feel like they can just throw strategies at an opponent where they say we are going to risk something, we're going to play an aggressive style, and if it works out for us, all the better. Whereas all the pressure is on the opponent because a team like Fnatic is not supposed to lose against beGenius, not even dropping a map there. So for them, there's a lot on the line to just make those plays.
Well, let's hear from our teams. What do they think about the first matchup of the day?
It's not the meta the problem, but more like our team for communication. Mostly, and maybe we get surprised by other team too, like Synergy surprised us a lot. So for the match with Fnatic, to be honest, I don't think we will beat them because they are very, very strong. But we will try our best and try to improve again and again to stay on HGC.
We are playing versus beGenius this Friday, and most people will probably think it will be an easy game, but I always tell my team and, you know, to everybody, to be honest, that you should never underestimate anybody. And because if you do that, that's when they have the upper hand or the chance to strike at you. So it's really important to prepare just as it's any team and just go from what we know.
It's interesting to hear from beGenius. One of the questions I asked about them is like, what's holding you guys back? Why aren't you earning a victory? Is it the meta? What's throwing you off? And they mentioned, okay, we actually understand the meta a lot. What's really hurting us is communication. We're just slightly off, 1 to 2 seconds in a fight or an engage, and it's enough that it hasn't net us a victory. And now that they're 0-8, there has to be a moment where they look at it and it just weighs them down so much.
Yeah, motivation is a huge part of that, and a lot of them are probably already thinking about the Crucible. They know that they are going down there, so they have to like think about the open division teams. They have to think, okay, who are we going to face? Who are currently the biggest contenders over there? Because as they said, they want to stay in HGC. They said we have communication issues, we have to solve them, and we need to make our way back in. But right now, of course, they still have matches left, and they need to try and take those. So maybe they can cause a bit of an upset. We've seen other teams do it in the past, so beGenius might just have a chance. surprising someone here.
Yep, there's 4 more weeks left of the HGC for beGenius to make a comeback, and they have 2 matches this weekend. They are facing off against Fnatic today, and then on Sunday, they'll be facing off against Dignitas. 2 stacked matchups to go against. It's going to be hard for them, but if they're going to pull it off, they have to start now. And then on the other side, of course, as Fnatic is a team that continues to do well. Let's find out which battleground we'll be going to for game number 1 between our teams. Now, the bans will be Braxis Holdout and Dragonshire. Man, Fnatic just does not love that Dragonshire. And Infernal Shrines will be the pickup here of beGenius.
Yeah, and of course when we're talking about Infernal Shrines, it's a pretty straightforward map when we're talking about the European scene at least, so it's going to be interesting to see what especially beGenius is going to do here. Fnatic is probably just going to try and play a pretty safe style. We've actually talked to them a bit about how they approach a game like this. If, for example, they would ever consider like trying to hide strategies or experiment a bit, and as Quackness already just said in that small clip that we had there, they are saying like, no, we can't do that, we take this match serious, because if we don't and we fall behind, that might cause a problem.
Fnatic looking to earn victories here on Friday. Hopefully a clean one. I think a majority of the community would agree this should be a 3-0. If beGenius can get a win or 2, though, that's when you can maybe snap the back of Fnatic. So let's go ahead and start moving into it. The first ban of the day will be Tassadar. beGenius potentially could be banning out Lucio. Lucio and Tassadar, man, are those supports that are just consistently being floated around.
Yeah, when we're talking about the bans, also one of the things that the European scene leans towards a bit these days is to ban heavily on Arthurs. Like, he's one of the high priority bans there. Tassadar, of course, like we see them a little bit more often, I feel, these days, now that he has been hit by the nerf hammer a couple of times. He makes it every now and then into the draft, but most of the time it's still a ban on him. As you said, Lucio is also a high priority. And yeah, together with Arthurs, those two are currently banned out the most when we're looking also at data that we get out of matches that are played off-stream, scrims, for example. So in the last few play days as well, just Arthurs is a ban. And Lucio as well. Of course, the combo is even stronger.
Yeah, they're powerful together. Now, I was wondering which Fnatic we would get today. Would we get some globals going around, some Falstad, maybe some Daka being mixed in, or would we get the Greymane Fnatic, which showed up last week? We had a couple of moments where Fnatic looked like they maybe weren't quite on point with the meta, and they pulled out Greymane and really made some good comebacks last week.
Yeah, the thing is that Quackness was always a huge Greymane player. I mean, it's the one hero that he was known for the longest time. And it got to a point where we were talking about the beginning of 2016. A lot of people were saying, like, he's a bit of a one-trick pony. He can only play his Greymane. You can put him on the Falstad as well, but that's the extent of his hero pool, which turned out to not really be true. But he admitted back then that he would probably have to branch out a bit. Over the course of the last year, they did a lot, but he loves to fall back into that Greymane role. But he never really got the opportunity until now, where Greymane is making a huge comeback. So Fnatic going back into the Greymane is them in familiar territory.
Well, being in familiar territory is going to be the name of the game here so far. With that being said, normally we'll be seeing a Malfurion popping out right about now. And then, again, you've talked about the Arthas. Arthas is just so powerful, especially on this battleground in particular. You can get around the shrines, set up, clear them out, get minions going. And you also take away Arthas from your opponents, which an Arthas into a Greymane can be kind of difficult to actually deal with.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried, to be honest, about beGenius' draft, like the priority that they currently have on the Gul'dan and Oriel. I don't think that those heroes really deserve the priority they just gave them. They're both strong, and they're also like strong in the combination and on the battleground, but now you give Fnatic just too many good tools. Malfurion is still, like, some argue that Malfurion is much higher to prioritize than Lucio, that Lucio is a bit overrated these days. It's a bit of a statement since both of them are having a huge impact on the games, but now you have an Anuburak together with the Malfurion and the Greymane, a potential pick on another tank then later. That's a lot of dive potentially against Gul'dan already, so I feel this early pickup by beGenius leads Fnatic into a position where they can say, okay, we're going to counteract that by just diving him hard, and so far they can pull that off.
Do you think Gul'dan's fine here if you don't pick up Oriel? I understand the Oriel and Gul'dan combination, but typically you hold off on that support pick.
Yeah, I would probably hold off on the support pick a bit. Of course, when we're looking at the bans now, we have already Lucio banned out. There's always the threat of, as Fnatic did, picking the support early, banning another one out, so you get pushed a bit into a corner. But there's still so many viable supports here that I feel you don't have to go into a support on the first rotation, at least not for an Oriel. The Gul'dan, I don't really mind him himself so much. It's just like the combo, if we consider that an Arthas is still around, that you could have picked up, let's say, for example, the Anuburak, or even a Malfurion, which I would rate higher, because it's going to give extra value to Fnatic. So it's just like the combo of the two as the first pick that I feel is not really on what we're usually seeing in the scene now.
Well, now we're thinking about our warriors in particular. Johanna could be a pickup. We've been seeing her get played more often, especially with Greymane kind of rising a little bit. Get a little bit of control there, the blinds being effective. Also, other warriors that stand out. Leoric great on this battleground, helping out for the clears. You also move into late game, which Gul'dan already scales into in a heavy margin. It's just a matter of how do we control that Anubarak?
Yeah, this is definitely going to be a bit tricky. The Sonya here makes sense, and in Sonya and Johanna, that works well. Oftentimes we've seen more of an Arthur's and Sonya composition. That, of course, isn't possible anymore since Fnatic took Arthur's immediately away from the opponent. But the Johanna can still fill quite a few of these roles. She has great wave clear, not only on the shrine, but more so even in lane. And, of course, you can work with the blind against Greymane. It's one of the crucial things to do here, really, to hold that blind back up to the point where Greymane starts to jump in. Fnatic is most likely going to get another damage dealer here, but controlling the Greymane in these fights is going to be crucial to keep someone like Gul'dan alive. And
Sonya should be in the front line. If Anubarak is near her, she can chunk down Anubarak quickly. Sonya is so wonderful as a great standard pickup on this battleground in particular. In fact, in the Chinese scene, they pick her first pick a couple of times. I've seen it. Pretty crazy on Infernal Shrines to think that Sonya could be valued in a different region at that level. Looking to our 4th and 5th pick here, probably another tank going to be in the mix here. We're thinking about Wubby's hero pool. Whenever you think Wubby, what do you think?
I mean, you could see that Dehaka there that we are probably alluding to with this, but we have seen Wubby on Anubarak. So
that's true.
As much as Breeze likes to play the hero, they are still flexible where they can say we're going to try and put someone else in. Now that they picked up the Dehaka, it's very likely that we're seeing indeed Wubby on Dehaka and Breeze on the Anubarak. But the cool thing about the way that they draft is that with an early Anubarak pick, they're still flexible enough to say, A, we drafted a Dehaka and set Wubby on him, or B, we just let Wubby play Anubarak and Breeze can go on to a different hero here and let's say throw in Ethereal now and then. So there's a couple of things they can do, so the flexibility is really key in this.
Well, over to the finish up for beGenius, and we get a Rhaegar in the mix. The double support, double warrior, solo damage is here. Now, one could admit that Sonya's more bruiser-esque here. She's meant to just kind of burn down the opposing team while Gul'dan's bringing out the Fel Flames and hopefully getting some solid corruptions in. But this composition is very sustain-based for beGenius, and it's going to take a while to actually burn down a member. If they can kill off a KT or a Greymane, though, they can start to win team fights.
Yeah, I'm a bit worried for them right now because, like, the thing is, double support is really strong, and it's one of the things that popped up in the European scene. Interestingly enough, it was the Synergy who brought that into the meta, and at first all the teams that scrimmed against Synergy had huge problems dealing with it, so now everybody starts to pick up on it. The one issue that I have with the draft here is that I'm not quite sure if Gul'dan is really going to put them into a position where they can get those kills. Normally, when you go into one of these double support, hyper-aggressive comps, what you're seeing is, let's say, a Greymane in there, or just like an AA attack damage dealer like a Vala that can get the support from the two auto attack from the two healers and can go very deep with it. So they don't have someone that puts out the sustained damage, and that could be an issue for them. If the Sonya, of course, can follow up, that's great, but I feel especially Kalthus is going to have a pretty easy time since it doesn't seem they have a lot of tools to go in there, maybe with a good Horrify, but Kalthus should never be in the position that he gets caught by that and pushed into the team. Yeah,
originally when this draft was forming, I looked over beGenius, I thought, okay, they're getting a lot of clear for the shrines, they want to win the shrine phase, have a Punisher jump in, drop the Horrify, burn some members down. The Kalthus pick, as you mentioned, really takes that away. Fnatic does have their own tools to clear out the shrine phase, so it becomes more of a wrestle for these two teams around the shrines. So let's get ready for game number 1 here. It's going to be Infernal Shrines. We're going to have beGenius kicking off against Fnatic. Can beGenius get their first victory in a matchup for the first time in the HGC Europe, or Fnatic continue to take them down?
Well, we're going to find out right now, jumping into our first map. It is Infernal Shrines. There's a lot of wave clear for beGenius. Is it going to be enough? That's the big question. To the left side, we have them starting up. And in this case, as you can see, Blume is playing everything right now. He's jumping between teams as well. Team Liquid apparently not really a challenge anymore. He's saying, like, boys, I need to bring beGenius to victory here. So yeah, of course, jokes aside, we have Arcane on the Sonya. We have Tank for the win on Rhaegar, first support. Danatan's on the Johanna, Unstable on Oriel, and Kierva on the Gul'dan.
And for Fnatic, Malfurion will be playing Smexy, Dehaka on Wubby. Kalthus will be played by Schwimpy. Greymane will be played by Quacknix, and Breeze will finish out the lineup on Anubarak.
So, the setup that we're having for beGenius here is definitely going to give them a lot of wave clear, thanks also to the Lightning Bond that we now have on Rhaegar as a level 1 talent, so that allows them to really clear these shrines quite fast. The problem is really the team fighting, or could be the team fighting. We have with Greymane a great damage dealer that can either go into the first bullet later on to try and blow one of the frontliners up, or simply go for the throat and jump in together with maybe that Anubarak. and try to wreck the backline. So the pressure against Gul'dan is something that is very important for Fnatic, whereas on the other hand we have beGenius basically with one mission, and it's the safe Gul'dan.
All going to be on Gul'dan's shoulder. Purify will be a great tool for beGenius, but that's at level 10. Fnatic will take this opportunity to push in the top lane with Quacknix in particular burning down the turret. Almost low on ammo already. Tank for the win on Arakeen attempting to trade back, but with Malfurion there to provide the supports, it's very difficult to get Greymane off of your push.
Yeah, I actually was wondering when we saw the draft, even if we would see something a little bit more risky on the side of beGenius, maybe even a leap to get into that backline. It's not something I usually see from Sonya, but a lot of the teams have been going a bit more towards these dive-heavy compositions. We've seen Tyraels with Judgment, for example, but normally when that happens, it's when a Lucio and Oriel is on the other side so that you don't have a cleanse available. So I think Leave would allow you to get a bit closer to the Kalthas, but then again, I don't really think it's going to happen because a good cleanse in that situation is already going a long way, and then Sonya is pretty isolated. So going into the backline to threaten Kalthas is going to be an issue for beGenius.
Yeah, it definitely is. And if they did go Leap, as you mentioned, the cleanse, but also the mana addict being available for Kalthas,
Yes.
that shield will be so powerful for really helping Fnatic for dealing with that pressure. So that is going to be a major task for beGenius to deal with. We'll see how they get there when they get the later stages. The first Shrine phase has begun. 9-0 in terms of control, and Rhaegar and Sonya just select to stay in the top lane, so beGenius gives up the first Shrine phase.
Yeah, and with that we have also one member of Fnatic rotating up to the top. In this case, it is the Haka together with Malfurion, trying to see if they can maybe even get a kill here, but a 4-man on the side of beGenius is already about to meet them here. But the problematic issue for beGenius is still that they do not have any control over the first Shrine. So they just simply give it up. And the idea behind it was they try to get some pressure in. So they say, give up the first Punisher. It's useless to us anyways. We can't do anything about it. We're most likely this early in the game losing that fight anyways. The Punisher's not going to do enough damage. And let's try to get some structure damage in. The problem with that is they didn't succeed in that. So they gave up a Punisher for free and didn't gain anything.
Yep, not even an experience lead. beGenius now will defend the Immortal, or the Punisher, that pushes on the left side here. Fnatic is going to take the time to burn down the turrets, and they will get the experience lead due to the gamble of beGenius just giving it up for free here. A slight lead, and that allows for Fnatic to rotate to the middle and top, get a pick off, and potentially more turrets.
Yeah, so they got the wall in this sense now, so that allows them at least to break through a bit faster, try to get the well down so that they take a bit of the stain on lane away from the opponent. The kill against Rhaegar, on the other hand, that of course adds insult to injury up here, so that early game doesn't really go well for the French team.
Healing Totem being picked up at 4 here for Rhaegar to drop in the back line to stay near Gul'dan. This should allow him to be a little bit more aggressive, especially with that level 1 talent that he's picked up for Sonya. Get a couple of bites in, but just merely some decent healing output to help out with this whole sustain comp that they are running. Another pick in the bottom left. Fnatic just keeps charging forward.
Yeah, Fnatic is doing well, and we have actually quite a few beGenius fans watching this as well. I mean, as we all always say, guys, you can tweet us at #HGC, and we had a tweet a bit earlier from John McCrudden, who was pumped for the HGC weekend and is hoping for an upset currently, favoring beGenius. And so far, his dreams unfortunately get crushed by Fnatic a little bit, but there's definitely quite a few fans of the French team out there that hope for their team to do well here today.
I think a lot of people are cheering for beGenius to get a victory, and you know, you never want to see a team go out, especially if they go to the Crucible and move throughout the entire first season without a victory. That would be such a painful scenario for beGenius. And I talked to Arakeen a little bit. They love, oh, hang on, Arakeen speaking about him could be in trouble here. Wubby moving forward. He's dropping the W.
Love that.
There's a drag. Shwivy finishes off, and that's a kill on Arakeen. Arakeen did mention in the interview we had with him that he appreciates so much that there are people still cheering for beGenius because they've had a really bumping season. And of course, with a lot of French people there to promote their team, he just wants to shout out and say thank you so much for continuing it, and we're trying our best to get you a victory.
They must be pretty frustrated considering how well they did in the qualifiers when they qualified for HGC for the first season here, and currently they are really struggling, and you can tell. Quacknix, of course, at this point going for the full cocktail build, and as we said earlier, like his time is going to be at level 10. Greymane just overall is such a fantastic hero and so versatile. If you have a good Greymane on your team, it makes all the difference in the world. Like, that hero is just a complete game changer.
Yep, he has poke, kill potential, aggressive play available, and he's a joy to watch. There's nothing wrong with a great Greymane player being available in a matchup. Now, the next Shrine phase has spawned 32-0. Fnatic just takes a commanding lead once again, and they're on the cusp of 10. beGenius at this point starting to fall behind in a heavy manner.
Yeah, Fnatic was not joking when they said earlier, okay, we are going to try and just play completely serious here. There's again the bait over the wall, very important if you're playing on Infernal Shrine, so Danatan makes sure that the Punisher is not stuck in front of the wall, so trying to reduce the damage he can dish out. But it doesn't matter because Fnatic is just jumping in deep, sacrificing heroic abilities here even, and that is the end of Johanna. She's down and so is Oriel.
Those kills came for two reasons. One, Breeze dove behind the tower. He dropped a bed of barbs there on the back left side that made it harder for Johanna to retreat. Arya moved forward to bring in the heal, and with the Punisher jumping in, Greymane, as we mentioned earlier, pounces in and gets the takedowns.
So the important part to note here is that Fnatic just used their level 10s. They were not afraid to jump into the keep or into the fort because they realized the opponent doesn't have level 10 yet. You get a huge power spike with this, and that allows you to take a fight that far back that you normally would be very reluctant to go for. But Fnatic realizing, hey guys, if we sacrifice our cooldowns on their heroic abilities, we can get a kill or two in this setup, we can take the fort down and take it from there. So this is exactly these key moments that you have to identify in the game. We have an advantage, let's use it.
The fort surviving for now as beGenius comes in for a solid defense with 4 people being in the bottom. Fnatic just backs up and we have Wubby push the top lane as Dahaka, and they also start the mercenary camps. Perfect rotations here from Fnatic, keeping up the pressure, and of course making sure that beGenius, if they ever do put so many resources in the bottom lane like we just saw, they get punished for it.
Yeah, right now, I mean, at this point, when you're looking at the setup, this is not the level 10, so in this situation, this is finally a moment where we could see beGenius making something happen here. As you already said, they suffered in the early game, they're already a level and a half behind, and we have them with 0 kills against 5. But now with their heroic abilities, we might finally see them try and make a bit of a stand there. But already Danatan in trouble again, and so is in this case unstable, but he's barely able to get out of it.
The Ancestor healing from Tank for the win, perfect. Danatan comes in for the engage, the drag hits on Johanna. Sonya's coming in from the right, she's gonna pop her Wrath and start spinning here. Shwimpy takes some damage here from the Impalers on the right, and beGenius, saving their Oriel, has a chance to fight back.
I loved how we saw the isolation coming in from Dahaka straight onto that Oriel, so that was pretty cool, trying to isolate the healer a bit and make Oriel slightly useless here. With a double heal combo that is being run by beGenius, of course, on the other hand, there was still enough healing to go around to make sure that nobody died. But yeah, beGenius sacrificing all of their heroic abilities. We still have Malfurion with the Twilight Dream on the side of Fnatic, and Fnatic is about to pick up level 13 talents, and that is going to give them a huge edge going into the next Shrine fight.
Especially with Dahaka in the bottom. Dahaka's going to push in, grab that fort they got down to a lower rate, and then he'll be able to brush stuck in at about 15 seconds, so Fnatic just needs to play a bit safer, make sure that if beGenius does go for the engage, they kite back until they have Wubby available. Everything is in the hands here for Fnatic, and they are just running away with it. beGenius on their side are attempting to clear out what they can. They know they need 13, they know they need something on the map.
It's interesting also to see with the talents when we are looking at Johanna, for example, that we have again the extra punish damage on the side of the level 4 talent. And I've been talking about this a bit when Dignitas was using it too. But there's a huge difference here, because when Dignitas used it, they had a single healer. So normally you want to have Laws of Hope on Johanna to have a bit more self-sustain. But in this case, Danatan is basically just saying, hey, I have 2 supports already. I don't need extra heal. What we are lacking is damage. Let's try to put a little bit more of that out here. It's also one of the reasons why we now have the Blessed Momentum for him on level 7 instead of Conviction, which is really the go-to talent for Johanna, since you need that engage and the utility. But they're just trying to reset the cooldowns for the ability so that they have a bit more damage output through the tank in those fights.
A little more oomph there from Fnatic. As they've charged in the middle, they try to jump on top of Rhaegar. Johanna currently in the middle lane with 4 of the members. No one in the top defending against this Punisher, and Fnatic takes the opportunity to push him, grab a fort. They have 14 at the same time. Wubby's in the middle. He can clear out the middle lane that Sonya's going to be having relatively soon. And we're going to keep Fnatic up with the charge here. They dive in. Gul'dan gets hit. Bed of Barbs is also hit Kirva.
Yeah, Kirva, they need to be careful here that nobody is in a position where Fnatic has an opportunity to dive in and take him out. But now they just simply move back, Fnatic that is, and with Dahaka soaking the entire time, you can just see that Fnatic is trying to just get another lead in talents. It's now 13 versus 13 on the talent tier, but we still have the 2-level lead for Fnatic that should very soon translate into an additional talent. And I mean, up to now, Fnatic had really smooth sailing. That was a very standard for them, and beGenius is really looking for opportunities where they can maybe just drive a wedge into the team, isolate someone and get a kill, but Fnatic doesn't make any big mistakes that open up opportunities for them.
beGenius with their aggressive play now, as you mentioned, now on the same talent tier for about a half a level, pushes it on the bottom fort, but Fnatic just waits it out, decides that their opponents are on the bottom part, and they move in for a keep, which is definitely an upscale trade for them. Fnatic is just playing lights out right now. beGenius needs to probably wait till 16 and hope to get a fight in the late game.
Yeah, that trade here as well, getting the keep is absolutely fantastic. The 16 Ellen, and Fnatic is playing this aggressive. Breeze is even knocking on the core and is saying, boys, you better TP back. We're not going to let you push the bot lane. You have to respond to this.
Wubby's in the bottom. He stops Johanna, so beGenius is missing out on one of their tanks, their engaged tanks. And if they chase too much now onto Fnatic, Wubby can rotate in, and that'll be a quick 5v4. So beGenius has to stop fighting. They clear out the top lane. They move to the middle to grab experience.
I would really like for beGenius to take a few risks. They are already in a position that Horrify didn't really do anything for them, just push them into the tank.
Actually,
and, yeah, with Johanna moving in from behind, that actually got a lot better then.
That was actually much better. The flame coming in from Johanna, I missed out on it. It was enough to push him into Johanna. Johanna came in with the Condemn and the Blessed Shield. Now Fnatic is being chased away. That was a fight unexpected that beGenius pulled off.
I have to say, though, that I don't really feel the Horrify in that sense was necessarily needed. Johanna can still use the Blessed Shield and go straight for it, so I feel if they hold that ability back a bit and let Johanna engage first from behind, get that kill, and then try to get a second on the back of it, that would put them even further ahead.
They could have probably saved it, but I liked how it did naturally group everyone up for a Condemn. It put 3 people into one area, which allowed Johanna to move in, so maybe that was the intention there. Regardless, it worked out for beGenius, and now they get to clear out a shrine. They're close to 16. Fnatic's fighting back, and with Kelpos on the way, beGenius will step back for a little bit until they do hit that 16, but they have a nice lead.
What also works for them is that camp at the top lane, because that lane is pressured by catapults now, since the keep was obliterated a bit earlier here. But they have no pressure at this point, and that's great for them because they can now commit fully to the shrine. And they will pick up 16 quite soon. If they are able to delay this a bit longer, pick up some experience in the mid lane or the top lane, there we have it, level 16 talents, so now they can try to fight on even footing with their opponent. And
Horrify is back, Aircane's in the front, Quacknix is on tank for the win, so Rhaegar needs to be careful. He drops the totem to live, Sonya low on health, there's the Aegis, Horrify being popped.
Yeah, and Nubra gets out. For a moment it looked like Breeze might actually fall here, but it smacks you, just icebox at the last moment. That doesn't do anything for him in the long run though, he's down, but so is Johanna.
beGenius surviving here. Airkane looking for more. With Malfurion being down and Sonya being a pseudo-tank, beGenius can be aggressive here due to their Rhaegar and Ariel being up. They have the sustain to keep her alive. So they do push in. Middle lane is taking some damage. Dahaka currently being focused.
And the top lane, the fort is falling, so beGenius is actually gaining quite a bit of momentum here and are closing that gap in experience. Fnatic lost the Punisher, they are losing the fort up to the top. That camp that beGenius took earlier was worth so much to them. It was perfect timing, and Fnatic now is starting to lose that advantage that they were building up through the early game.
Yep, 17-17, Fnatic in a spot where they're going to have to start thinking about beGenius getting in the engages they want, especially with Johanna, Sonya, and Gul'dan in late game. Things get very scary, particular at 20, when Norpain comes on for Sonya, and Johanna can just become that massive tank that has almost a second health bar, which becomes indestructible. So watch out for those as we get to the late game. beGenius holding on for now. There is one saving grace of Fnatic in their early game. They have the catapult pressure consistently on top with the Dahaka.
And this is also one of the moments that Quacknix warned about when he said we cannot get complacent here. We need to make sure that we fully concentrate and take this serious. We cannot expect to win this. We need to work for it. And there's exactly that work coming into play. Oriel taken down, a 5 versus 4 as Fnatic goes to town, but Smexy's low and he falls.
He does fall. We do have the Ancestral Healing just now coming up for tank for the win, so we can turn this fight around if beGenius wants to go for the engage, a 1-for-1 trade. Solid play by Fnatic. They realized that Rhaegar was in the bottom because the Mercenary camp did pop up and they saw all 4 members in the middle, so they focused Ariel before the Ancestral Healing or a heal could come in from Rhaegar.
Yeah, for Smexy, this is actually getting a bit frustrating. He didn't even have an opportunity to use his heroic here, so he was looking for a chance, but that did turn out to not work for him at all. So him falling, Oriel dying then at the same time though, so that gives Fnatic at least in this sense a bit of a victory. And they're still ahead in experience. They catch the level 19 a bit faster. They can work towards the 20 now, and we have soon another shrine phase on the map, spawning up at the top. But this is definitely a game where beGenius has been closing the gap significantly and could, with a good team fight, take a lead.
They could close the gap too. Also with the middle lane, there's a fort there available that could give them experience that Experience gap, well, pretty big, 18 and 19. It can be closed quickly with a pickoff, like you just mentioned, getting a fort, grabbing the experience. beGenius does have tools here to get into the game here before 20 pops up for Fnatic. We'll see if they make the aggressive plays.
All right, the French team is already up at the top. Fnatic is trying to go for a quick backdoor at the bottom to snipe another keep. Let's see how fast beGenius is reacting to it. They know what's coming, and they start to just Hearthstone back. Fnatic already at the wall, though, trying to break through and aiming straight for keep number 2.
Dan10 here first with his Johanna. Rhaegar to help out as well. They're going to try and get on that back line. KT in particular, watch out for Quacknix. They need to blind him on the back left. There's Kirbob moving in. Horrify is available. 18 and 19, 20 about to hit. If this keep goes down, Fnatic will instantly get 20.
And Auriel trying to save Rhaegar. And Fnatic did not fully commit to this. They need to take that keep down. Sonya is going to get the Punisher up at the top. Here comes the Ancestral. Goes down on Gul'dan. They are all moving in again, and Fnatic will eventually get the keep. There it is. And they have 20 as well. Now Gul'dan is dead, and this could be rough for beGenius.
That could be the game. Sonya decides to go ahead and move in and finish off the last minion there to get the Punisher pushing. She was waiting around trying to figure out what the team wanted to do, and the shot call was too late. And Fnatic goes for the throat, goes for a takedown. One pick-off member. Johanna in trouble as well. She's been silenced, getting focused down. Rhaegar here for a heal and a bite. Can it be enough? Sonya finally joins in on the fight.
Yeah, they take down Johanna. The only hero that falls is Nuburak, but that is it. And they already took hit points off the core. The Punisher is moving through the top, but Fnatic decides that they won't be able to finish the core off. Quacknix is very low. Smexy at this point is starting to run out of mana, so in the end they just decide to defend the top lane, it seems. Unless, of course, they get the kill against Sonya now as well. But it seems like a tank for the win is going to be able to save Arcane here. But of course, beGenius should not really be chasing. They need the experience for 20 to finally take a team fight again.
Arcane keeping them there for a small amount of time. The Punisher has been cleared up already, mostly by this keep and the turret, so Fnatic will be able to finish it off. 20 is here for beGenius. They are down 2 keeps, but they're not out of the game. They will be able to pick up their Storm talents here and get into fights. Looking at Sonya, she has Ignore Pain. We have Storm Shield as well for Rhaegar, and of course we have Haunt for Gul'dan. So we're looking for that massive Horrify to give that vulnerability to the opposing team.
Yeah, so survivability is really not beGenius' problem, I have to say. The double support that they have, now they also have, as he said, Ignore Pain. They have so many tools at their disposal at this point to keep everyone alive in the team. The question simply is, can they out-sustain Fnatic? Because the burst damage that comes out of the team like Fnatic with the Greymane and also, of course, with the Kalthas at this point is pretty significant. The keep also at the top lane, where the Punisher was trying to do some damage for beGenius, hasn't fallen. So now Fnatic finds themselves in a situation where they are not only up in experience, which at this point is starting to matter less after level 20, but they have taken 2 keeps down. So there's 2 lanes pushing for Fnatic, and that is going to give them a pretty big lead going into the next Shrine phase, where beGenius is essentially going to be on clock.
Yep, so Fnatic looking to close it out. beGenius is hoping to survive here to get an opportunity to even move in for a keep. What do you think about that Storm Shield being picked up at level 20 for Johanna?
I think, like, normally I wouldn't really be a big fan. I think with the thought process that they have here, it makes sense. They're just trying to out-sustain the entire setup that Fnatic has here, and they figure, okay, if it works, then we can actually win the fight. If we just take all the damage, if they use all their cooldowns and we eat all of that, then we can just, like, walk through them and take them down one by one. So with that thought in mind, I can understand it. I also feel that Johanna doesn't necessarily need the Indestructible, since we have Ancestral as a panic button. We also have Auriel here. With all that support, Johanna isn't really worried about herself, she's more worried about the rest of the team.
Okay, makes sense there. Iron Skin has been popped in the bottom left, and that got a trap. Dan10 sniffs it out, bringing in that Blessed Shield. And the Shrine has spawned. For now, beGenius has pushed the top lane, so they bought themselves some time here to actually fight around the Shrine, as it now will activate in the next 4 seconds. Big Flame Strikes coming out from Schwimpy.
Yeah, the drag against Gul'dan. He had no business there. That's a huge problem. Auriel immediately with a save, but that initiates the fight. Ancestral does not go through, and Gul'dan is down.
That looks like it might be game. beGenius is fighting to survive now. And Fnatic just sit on the back line. If Kel'Thas does fall, beGenius has a chance. Erakine's moving in for it. Quacknix is on the bottom left dealing with Johanna. We're going to see a big engage on the back left. Quacknix turned around. He is being focused down, but he will be able to scurry away while Smaxy brings in the heals.
That's exactly the sustain that we talked about, but losing Gul'dan this early in the fight, that was the big issue. And that was a big misplay. Walking straight into the bush there did not do them any favors. They even, I mean, they should be able to walk away here, but it was so close. They nearly took down Quacknix. Now Unstable falls though, and with Oriel all of a sudden being dead, that makes it a 3 versus 5, and that is not going to end well for beGenius.
No, it's not. Erakine and Dantan are fighting for their life, just barely surviving, but even with catapults getting in the mix, Fnatic takes out 4 members. Gul'dan does spawn in 10 seconds, but Gul'dan on a 1v5, not going to go so well. Take for the win, showing off his steps here and dancing, is going to eventually fall victim to the team of Fnatic as well.
Yeah, that's a complete team wipe, and that was really unfortunate. Kirva with a big misplay there at the end, and they had a chance of winning that fight. You could see how close it was, even in a 4 versus 5 without their main damage dealer. It looked like Quacknix could fall. They were engaging onto Kel'Thas at some point and trying to drop him. If they have Gul'dan with a Horrifier at this moment, they might be able to get that takedown. But with him dying first, that's of course the end of it, and Fnatic is going to take game number 1 on Infernal Shrines. Well played by them, but beGenius showing a couple of moments where they could have maybe even turned it around.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that it ended so off there at the end.
Anticlimactic, yeah.
Very anticlimactic. You know, we were all getting set up. There is a moment where, you know, okay, Fnatic should be able to wait this one out and eventually get the victory in the Shrine, but the big drag coming in from Wubby. There was an instant cleanse from Rhaegar and also an Aegis, and then a follow-up Ancestor Healing. The Ancestor Healing did not complete. Had it maybe hit, they could have won that fight, but it really comes down to the first element.
Yeah.
Getting caught out.
Also, like, the cleanse and also the Oriel ult, that was actually great, but at the same time, you're starting to burn a lot of your cooldowns to try and save someone who shouldn't be in that position in the first place.
Yeah.
That is really where Johanna should be, where she should just poke with either Shield Glare, or you can use any other ability to see, okay, is the way safe? Can I walk through there? Johanna, even if she gets dragged, can then get cleansed, gets the Iron Skin, doesn't even have to use something like the Aegis. So in that case, that was unfortunately a very crucial misplay here at the end, which cost them the game.
And this all falls under the umbrella of why beGenius is having a hard time earning victories. Small little things like that just make them lose a game. And they had moments of glory, as you mentioned. It just seemed like the communication wasn't slightly there. A little bit more patience, and maybe we have a different game.
You talked about the communication, and it felt really a bit like Gul'dan was on the assumption, okay, we're going to move in right now. Then Johanna falls back, he doesn't get the memo, starts walking forward, and that's the moment where Fnatic just pounces and takes him out.
Yeah, little things like that. Again, kudos to Fnatic. They continue to take game number 1 and looking to maybe continue to finish out this series. We'll be right back with game number 2 between beGenius and Fnatic.